Welcome to the All Things Circular podcast, your gateway to the circular economy. Hosted by industry experts, Victoria D'Arcy and Richard Bulger. Every episode is proof that circularity isn't just good for the planet. It's a smart business decision. Our mission is simple: to empower, to inform, and to show you how to make the circular economy work for you.
Another one of the legends in this space, the David Watson from RL People. So David, tell us a little bit about you, RL People. What is RL Equity? Just give us a little bit of a background.
Happily, thank you for having me first and foremost, guys. I think this is a brilliant idea and I'm delighted to be a part of it. So RL People, we are specialist recruiters across the reverse and circular supply chain on a global scale. Founded in 2017 by someone from industry, specifically to help organizations to attract, recruit, and retain industry professionals. It's been an amazing journey. We now support over 100 organizations globally.
Wow.
We've helped over 400 people secure new positions in the circular supply chain since 2021. And it really does feel like we're just scratching the surface. With increasing focus on circularity, changing consumer habits, it feels like just the beginning. So delighted to be in this space. I've had fun so far and really looking forward to the next decade.
You know, working at Verizon and Cisco, different organizations, I found it very hard to find people that even knew what reverse logistics was, let alone having a passion to go through and pursue a career in it. So how do you find people, and how do you find companies that are looking for people?
It's a very good question. And unfortunately, there's only a finite number of individuals within the space looking for opportunities. So we'll talk about those challenges a bit later and how we're combating them. But at the moment, we're engaging with organizations that are expressing that they are engaged in circular activities. But they struggle to find talent and they struggle to find the right people to help them to scale their initiatives. So we're very fortunate that we've built some incredibly robust relationships over the years with organizations that are genuinely trying to accelerate circularity. But there's a lot more out there that we're not currently engaged with, and there's a lot out there who are struggling to define and refine a suitable proposition to attract people into the industry. So we're always looking for more partnerships, always looking to support more organizations and to support more people. How do we attract individuals into industry, and how do we find industry professionals? LinkedIn is the tool of choice. Honestly, it's superb, and it always has been an incredible tool for us. But as said, there are only a finite number of individuals, and this whole circular evolution, we need more individuals engaged in it to accelerate genuine success. So a large part of what we're doing as RL People is trying to attract more individuals into industry and help them to join this journey. But it's not easy. It's not easy.
I think one of the things that we were chatting about before this session is, how circularity really should be viewed these days. Individuals coming in, certainly the next generation coming in. I think what are different from when we were all entering the industry is we got interviewed, whereas now the candidates are interviewing their prospective employers.
Absolutely.
With that sort of in mind, how are you viewing kind of circularity in the industry?
It's a great question. There's a number of viewpoints that I have specifically about circularity. A lot of individuals are aware that necessity means opportunity. We cannot carry on as we have been. The linear economy, it's not sustainable. Precious metals are running out. Let's face facts, in 10, 15, 20 years, there's certain key elements for technology that are going to run out. So that's the necessity piece. That's driving demand, but what I'm also seeing is that the circular supply chain and everyone within it are not inherently connected. There is a level of disconnect within the circular supply chain. Service providers do not speak to service providers. OEMs do not speak to service providers. And individuals are just not talking enough. As we've seen today, by getting together and just talking about challenges, talking about opportunities, we've achieved some great things and some great initiatives that are going to come out the back of this. If we can increase that at scale to ensure that more service providers are speaking to more service providers, more OEMs are speaking to more service providers, and so on and so forth, we will see more success. So very keen to try and combat that disconnected nature within circularity.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because we actually lived through another disconnect, and that was the disconnect within organizations. Mm-hmm. Cisco had 4 different return streams based upon the source, and they all tried to hoard their own inventory. They all had different point of sale systems, different contracts and inventory management approaches within the same company, even. So I can't imagine trying to go through from one organization to another and trying to get everyone on the same page. But
it's incredibly difficult. And I didn't mention RL Equity, but RL Equity is our business focused on organizational business sale and acquisition, essentially mergers and acquisitions within circularity. We've seen it time and time again where organizations go on a massive M&A purge and try and acquire businesses, but there's no integration. And that's a collaboration issue. There's no integration, there's no collaboration, there's no communication between systems and people post-acquisition. At scale, that becomes a systemic issue, which ultimately leads to that organization failing. And that has happened in the past. And
I think that comes from fear. And I think the fear is bred because people don't communicate. You communicate, you collaborate, but if you do that, you actually reduce the fear. Because one of the things I think that I've seen repeatedly is it only takes one person to say no. A month's worth of work can just fall down.
100%.
And I think, the key to it is to kind of get everybody on board, which again, it's a circular mindset, and it's a growth mindset. Because I think, the destination may be clear to pretty much everybody, but unless we can all get on board with the vehicle and with the way that we move to those destinations, which is the key in collaboration, and it is the key in this kind of, the culture that you alluded to, it's fundamental. Otherwise, things fail. And I've seen some of the best projects in terms of idea, right time for the market. I mean, Rich and I have had experience with, trying to launch a few ourselves, and everything was right apart from not everybody that was a stakeholder got on board, and it failed.
Yeah, there's a lot of companies that are talking about being circular. There's over 100 different definitions of the word circular economy. And every company is just trying to figure out how they should go through and do it. Questions about what does a circular organization even look like continue to come up. So I want to ask this next question in 2 parts, because with RL People, you are matching companies that have a position of need that you've got to go through and attract with people that want to be in the space. So talk to me first about how you go through and find companies that are looking for circular help. Any trends you're seeing with those organizations? Writing job descriptions is a challenge for some.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we'll take it into how you're recruiting people by generation, which is a different challenge, because not all jobs should get recruited the same way depending on who you're talking to.
Absolutely, 100%. So we'll start with trends that we're seeing specifically within the industry and from our customers. So essentially, there is increasing demand across all circular services at the moment, and these are driven by shifting habits. There's technological advancements on the business-to-business side of things. Everyone's talking about it. I'm going to talk about it, but AI. AI is having such an impact on data center capability, and data center infrastructure, which is ultimately leading to a lot of legacy kit becoming available on the market. So that presents a significant opportunity to our customers. A shift in consumer habits. Honestly, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, second-hand items, they had a negative link to them. They really did. But now everyone is buying and selling on eBay and various other marketplaces out there. They're building businesses from it. My wife has so many secondhand clothes; it's ridiculous. She doesn't have to buy new anymore.
It's actually growing. The resale value of clothing is growing 3 times faster than the sales of new clothing.
There you go.
But culturally, see, this is where I think we as a culture are changing. And I think platforms like Vinted have been fundamental in that, because they've taken the stigma away from buying, second-hand clothes. just like, you're no longer using it, you monetize it, because as much as people are consuming from it, they're pushing into it, and they're actually, it's circularity in action. And I really think culturally that's beginning to actually breed its way through society. And, and now, like, to your point, it's no longer a stigma to have, a second-hand.
Exactly that. And that is significant, because circular fashion is a tricky business model. It's very difficult to turn profitability at scale, but with increased consumer habits and consumer demand, that will become easier. So part of the difficult piece is being covered ultimately. So that's another trend. I guess a final trend that we're seeing is, and this is more on the RL equity side of things, but significant external investment interest in circularity. This is across private equity, venture capital, institutional investors, angel investors, and so on and so forth. People see the opportunity. The ITAD space in particular at the moment, we've seen several transactions over the last couple of years, significant transactions at massive valuations happening. That's not going to slow down, and a lot of our customers think that it's just the beginning. So certainly across 25, 26, 27, I expect there to be, and our customers expect there to be, a significant number of M&A transactions. That's why we created our equity.
Yeah, absolutely. You're seeing that right now. DHL just announced that they picked up Inmar, pushing them very deep into reverse logistics.
Yes.
Iron Mountain bought WiseTech. Peter Evans, a good friend of ours and a contributor, is an expert right now on tracking the different M&As going through. Like, from your position with RL People, now that you see these companies trying to come together and you get different silos within the organization, they're clearly buying companies to get a specific set of skills. What is your vision and view on how smart staffing can go through and make those integrations smoother?
I think it all starts at proposition phase. So when I started this in 2017, this was before circular economy became the buzzword. It was reverse supply chain and reverse logistics, and it was always the afterthought, cost center, slightly dirty stuff that no one wanted to talk about. In order to increase the success of onboarding and attracting and bringing more people into organizations that are focused on the circular economy, we have to focus on the proposition development. It's defining and refining in the right way. Defining the proposition from the ground up and then refining it to ensure that it appeals to the external world. Circularity is all about recovering, regeneration, repurposing, reducing the... Reselling. Exactly that. Reducing what we're creating at the front end and optimizing what is already in the economy. That's so cool. And it resonates with people now. People are interested in sustainability. People want to be involved in sustainability, but organizations have to make that link between repair, refurbishment, remanufacturing, and systemic changes to the planet that we live on. If we get that right, then it will make attracting and integrating and ultimately hiring people into organizations so much easier.
Can I take one stage further? Because I think actually, this fear of cannibalization needs to be addressed. Because all of that is absolutely true. But one thing that I've seen, again, is, vendors in particular will stand in their own way through fear of cannibalizing a new sale without realizing that actually you don't just have your first kind of marquee tier of customers. You've actually got customers further down the stack. And it's, can you actually, loop those into your ecosystem? And the answer should be yes. It should be, because these are aspirational brands, and there are organizations that want to use these brands that can't necessarily afford to buy them new. And I do think there's a disconnect here between what a vendor kind of thinks their customer base is and what actually their opportunity is.
Yes.
It's really interesting, because if you go through and you look at how technology has influenced businesses as a whole, we came from an organization, and Verizon had one that was very similar, where your sales leaders understood sales channels. Retail reps didn't necessarily make the best business-to-business reps. Even business-to-business reps didn't make the best government reps. And not often would you have people that worked in retail or in government that could be good specialists in going through and selling through e-commerce channels. Even though they were all selling a product to someone else, it's different sales. And I think organizations need to evolve to view customer 2, 3, and 4, and how to get product graded and positioned to meet those customers where they're at as a product goes through its cycle, going from the first customer to the second customer, which to me is the best definition of a successful circular economy program. measuring the amount of times a product goes from customer one to customer two. So, David, talk to me a little bit about how you recruit people for the sales part of the circular economy, because it's the economics that I see moving mountains more, and the economics have a clear tie to environmental. If you make more money on something and keep it in production, you help the environment. If you reduce the amount of distance a product has to travel, not only are you reducing the impact on the environment, you're also reducing the cost to move the thing. So it's no longer logistical people move boxes. They have to integrate into a sales channel, and it's not comfortable for some that have been doing this for a long time.
You're spot on. And it's no coincidence that we recruit across all skill sets within the circular supply chain, but sales and business development is our busiest area. I would say 60 to 65% of the placements that we have made and will continue to make are for salespeople. Now, in terms of the challenges that we're seeing with hiring and integrating salespeople into more circular processes and so on and so forth, there's the traditional individuals out there, which, to your point, Rich, they are difficult to. It's difficult for them to accept for change. Ultimately, difficult for them to accept this innovation in this circular piece, and there's nuance as well. One organisation might offer a certain secondary material, and another might offer another secondary material, and it depends on who you're engaging with as well. There's different customers out there. If you're selling B2C or B2B or wholesale, it's tricky. So what we do as RL people is we are there to support organisations in really honing in on the right person for the right position, because we hear it time and time again. Circular organisations hire salespeople from more traditionalist backgrounds, and they struggle with integrating and accepting the change. So we are very much there to act as a due diligence barrier, speak with these sales individuals, pitch the proposition in the right way, establish that their skill sets are aligned with what that organisation is looking to achieve, and then ultimately making the connection.
David, can I ask, are you seeing a change in people that are applying for positions in, circularity, supply chain? Are we seeing this become more of an aspirational area to work in? Just, with really the focus on ESG type metrics and, the focus that certainly the generations behind us now have in terms of, environmental impact of what it is that we do?
Not yet, but we should be. And this is the whole, I keep harping on about proposition, defining and refining. I think we need to change the rhetoric on what circular jobs are and make them more attractive to a wider landscape. Because we can't keep hiring circular industry professionals to fill circular industry jobs because there's not enough of them. There's increasing jobs, less people, or a finite number of people. If we can get the rhetoric right that this isn't a afterthought cost center, it's a profit center. It is changing the world at a systemic level. It's helping the environment. It's giving individuals more opportunities. And ultimately, you can be very well paid to be in this industry as well. Why would people not be more interested? So I am very, very passionate about increasing the visibility of what a career in circularity can bring to someone. And we'll talk about that shortly, how we do that. But very, very keen to have more supply chain professionals, or maybe individuals with absolutely zero industry experience, but a passion to get involved.
Yeah, we had talked about this a little bit last night over dinner, and I think it's important to bring up. You're bringing up the topic of reframing positions that for a linear economy, forward and reverse logistics are great examples of how the linear economy worked, moving to, moving from, all returns are bad, where circular economy, you're actually driving returns up.
Yes.
So you're starting to see some things come out there. I'm a big fan of using circular logistics instead of forward and reverse. When we entered the market, when baby boomers entered the market, they were looking for a job. The employee opinion surveys that I remember reading at Verizon and Cisco as the main reasons why people would choose our profession was for purpose. So you're seeing some reframing. Instead of repair technicians, they're called sustainability technicians.
Yes.
Keeping things in production. Your job is to make sure that this thing doesn't go to waste. It's a different sound than your job is to fix this thing. One of my companies that I'm helping with, I am a fractional chief circularity officer where I have revenue responsibilities and sustainability responsibilities. But there's a lot of people that have worked in logistics that are fearful of sales or quota, but the new generation is not. We're talking a little bit about how they worked different from a time perspective and from a side job perspective. Can you lean into some of the reframing of jobs that you're seeing as we transition from linear to circular and as technology continues to evolve?
Absolutely. So the reframing is playing more on the sustainability piece. The younger generation are very interested in having an impact, to your point, Rich, and having an impact not just on themselves and their immediate family, but the entire world. So the whole reframing of circular jobs is right. This is sustainability at heart. We are very much focused on accelerating change in a good way, saving the planet, and ultimately creating good things.
Let's go ahead and pause there for a second,
Sure.
because of the light issue.
Slightly. Should we ask that question?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
I completely spun me out.
Yeah, that's one way to stop the podcast.
I don't know why that happened. We were just not moving enough.
Yeah, so sustainability is good, sustainability is bad, but maybe Josh, you can. What do you mean? Yeah, just move. Yeah, from time to time, just to let the sensors know that we're going. But David, talk to me about how companies are starting to reframe just what they're calling jobs and how they're recruiting and how it's different for generational recruitment.
There's certainly more of a play on the sustainability part of circularity. By coming on board and holding a circular position, you can accelerate change at a personal, organizational, and worldwide level. It's great to see organizations are starting to adopt that. There's a balance there. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to greenwash and say, look, you're coming on board in a circularity position. You're going to change the world immediately. That's just not true. It's baby steps. So that's a significant part of it. There's also attraction techniques are evolving as well with organizations. I'd say reverse logistics has always been quite a manual process. And that has filtered through to how we attract candidates and just the very nature of candidates. We're in a digital age these days. The younger generation are all on social media platforms, and they want to engage digitally. What we are starting to see is organizations are working harder to attract the younger generation into circular jobs by leveraging social media platforms. TikTok is one of the most powerful talent acquisition tools out there for service technicians or circular technicians, whatever you want to call them. So there's a lot of innovation and organizations are really starting to home in on, right, where is our target candidate pool?
How do we reach them?
How do we get to them? How do we attract them? So that's really interesting.
Can I ask, just are you seeing anything from sort of the job creation side of things? Because one of the things that we've always come up against, certainly historically, is sustainability and circularity has always been seen as a cost. It's not actually been seen as revenue. And are you seeing a change just sort of in the job creation side of things where people are saying, actually, we want people that can come on board and deliver value, not just value from, an environmental, social, or governance, but value in terms of revenue into the business?
100%. It's an incredibly competitive market now. And for individuals who have a competitive sales growth focused mindset who are also aligned with circularity, there are a significant number of opportunities out there with all manners of organizations across the entire circular supply chain. You can be selling solutions on the asset recovery side of things, the value-adding repair or refurbishment side of things, the resale and redistribution side of things, or remanufacturing side of things, and you can do extremely well. So 100% organizations are now aware that there is an opportunity to pitch the right solutions to customers, and also to be profitable in the process.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to hear, actually.
Now, there's only one college on the planet that I have found that has a college curriculum, a bachelor's or master's degree program in reverse logistics, and it's the American Public University system. You've got the American Public University and the American Military University, where a lot of soldiers go to get training when they're deployed. It was correspondence courses when I was in the military. Now it's a lot more modern. But if you look at a circular journey where part of it is going forward to the point of use, then through reverse away to get graded and tested to go back to forward, reverse logistics is really one half of a product's journey. but there's virtually no education on it. So, David, what sort of advice would you give to the people who are entering the workforce or who are looking for a career change? We see them on LinkedIn all the time. As jobs are changing, they're evolving, that want to get into the reverse part of circular logistics. How do you recommend people get trained and learn how to do this?
There's no easy answer to that, because there are not enough resources out there in the marketplace for individuals to access easily to upskill themselves. There are several, your book included, Rich, which is a superb resource. And there's other individuals and there's other associations that are trying hard to drive visibility and accessibility to learning materials. But as it stands, there is no centralized forum for individuals in or out of the industry to access content, understand what the trends are. So for me, and this is a visibility piece that I'm always talking about, is we have an obligation as individuals involved in circular economy to enhance visibility, to increase access to learning materials, to just tell the average individual out there what the circular economy is. I've always said, unless you're in it, you don't know it exists. Unless you're returning something, you don't know that there's repair companies out there turning over hundreds of millions of dollars. You don't know that there's organizations that specialize in stripping precious metals off of PCBs and then repurposing it. But it's so cool, but people just don't know it's there. So we need to be shouting louder from the rooftops.
Yeah, and I think on this, it's having recently sort of set up my own business and having come from the remanufacturing world and obviously being, a circular economy expert myself, I had a real desire to buy remanufactured products. So I was able to buy a refurbished phone. That was okay. But for love nor money, I could not get a refurbished laptop, the one that I wanted. And I really searched for it. I really, really searched for it. And I find there's a huge gap actually in the provision of these products, certainly to a consumer level. B2B, it's a lot more robust. Okay, those relationships do exist and they're in growth. But I think certainly now with the change in terms of mindset, from drawing it back to the likes of Vinted and the eBays of this world, there is now a desire and the stigma has gone, but the actual ability to get hold of these products is still really quite difficult. And that comes from me, and I'm in it.
Which presents a significant opportunity for service providers who are able to acquire assets, add value to them, and then redistribute them to individuals on a direct-to-consumer basis. Yeah, and we are seeing that starting to accelerate. There's some really innovative stuff out there, and there will continue to be throughout this year. But there's still a massive gap between supply and demand. But necessity creates opportunity, right? So, as I said, I think the next 5 years are going to be massively transformative. We're going to continue to see more service providers entering that market to make refurbished goods more accessible to the consumer.
So on that note, what do you want to see out the next 5 years? From your seat, what would you like to see?
I want to see people giving it a go. If you've got a circular idea, go for it. Because ultimately, the amount of external investment interest in the industry at the moment, if you've got something that is viable, it will be listened to and it will be invested in. So if you've got the circular ideas circulating, pull together a business plan and give it a go. Because, as I said, when it's not an optimized industry yet. I'd say probably maximum 10 to 15% of true circularity is actually taking place globally.
Right.
Massive opportunity. We're just scratching the surface.
Well, actually, I saw on LinkedIn, Davos was a couple of weeks ago, and global circularity actually shrunk FY23 to FY24.
It's a travesty.
It went from 9% to 7%.
Well, I think it's because the focus has been more on the sustainability part and not enough on the economic part. And if you look at just to your point that you made on laptops, my definition of a circular economy is successful movement of a product or parts of a product from one owner to the next. And with that definition, the two most successful circular economies that have ever existed, no one considers circular. Real estate, automotive, because you're not going to recycle your car unless it has no value. You're certainly not going to recycle your house because the land has value. There's different industries that have come up for services and warranties and financing for used things in those. So you had highly valuable, highly durable goods over time. And then technology started evolving. I think mobility got into trade-in type of programs really fast. ThreadUp just did a study that over 70% of Gen Z and millennials are checking the resale value of their clothing before they buy it. So why? Because they want to use that value to buy the next new thing. And those are the people that are going to be building the companies that the legacy linear supply chain are going to be competing against. But it kind of overshot the computing industry. You don't see trade-in programs at scale like you see in mobility. I found that brands have much stronger opinions about cannibalization and brand protection than distributors of things. Verizon's trade-in program, a distributor of Apple, Samsung, Motorola, came about 7 years before Apple finally decided to embrace the program. We ran into challenges at Cisco where we were trying to get them to buy equipment back, but there was a fear of taking ownership, even though it's being done through distribution channels. It's a $4 billion business just with used blue based upon some studies that we've read. So do you see a difference between how brands recruit, distributors recruit, and the secondary market recruits? Because they're all different parts of the forward supply chain. They're all different parts of the secondary supply chain. Are they the same? Are they different? How do you treat brands versus distributors versus secondary market?
That's a really interesting question. And again, there's no coincidence that our highest volume of hiring takes place at the service provider level. The organizations out there that have built their capabilities around circularity. OEMs are listening, brands are listening, and there is an increased awareness and participation in the circular economy, but not enough yet. So the primary difference that we see is not a difference in recruiting technique per se, it's just a sheer volume of requirements. There's not a significant number of requirements coming out of OEMs or brands yet, but I think there will be as the momentum continues to build. And as they have to listen, they might not want to listen, but they have to listen.
That's the canary in the coal mine, I think. If you start seeing the brands go through and start doing these true circular recruitments, that's when difference is going to be made.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think what's interesting for me here is the transfer of knowledge. Because what I don't think OEMs and brands necessarily realize is there's knowledge actually in the market, to your point, of the people that have built businesses doing it, and to be able to actually transfer that knowledge back into the OEM to really create circularity at the point of manufacture almost, because having worked sort of 20 years in a big OEM, I never saw that transference come from the secondary market back in. I saw people leave the OEM to go into it, but I never saw it transfer back. And it's really interesting that actually that skill set that perhaps at one point in time was seen as unnecessary at an OEM because the sales model was different, actually now really should be drawn in.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I see it as transfer of knowledge is the same as ultimately collaboration. And we were discussing this earlier, but there is not enough collaboration across the entire circular supply chain, regardless of what organization is involved. If there is more collaboration and more of a transfer of knowledge, we will accelerate change faster and we will have more of an impact. This cannot be done in standalone. It cannot be done as a handful of organizations trying to accelerate circularity. This has to be all organizations on the same page and aiming for the same thing.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, David, we could talk to you forever. And I think in order to make that happen, we're just going to have to invite you back on.
Please do.
Talk a little bit more. Kudos to you for building a solution to the recruitment challenge for tomorrow's business.
Thank you.
Any final thoughts? How can people find you? And what would you recommend to anyone listening about the future of recruitment in circular logistics?
I'm pretty prolific on LinkedIn, so please connect with me, reach out to me on there. I'm always happy to connect and talk with individuals. I'm happy to connect with anyone. I'm happy to talk to anyone. If it's someone outside of industry or within industry who's considering career opportunities or considering hiring someone, would love to talk to them. So I guess my recommendation today is please don't hold back in reaching out. If you do want to connect, please do. Give me a shout. I'm happy to talk.
What's the website?
rl-people.com is our recruiting website.
Great.
Wonderful. Well, David, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
I look forward to round 2 with you at some point.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Well, that's it for this latest episode of All Things Circular. Thank you to our guest, David Watson. Thank you to Rich for being a great moderator there. And, we look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. Please head over to allthingscircular.com to learn more.